I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV, and we have with us one of our favorite guests, an observer of the scene, David Goodman, the author of Goodman's Gam and the Inquirer and Mirror, and also the fishing column. Mm-hmm. And David, welcome.
How you doing, Dan?
Nice to see you. And how's the fishing?
The blue fishing is good. The bass fishing is a little slow, and I don't think it's going to get a lot better this year. We're the people that make the rules or the laws haven't agreed on a lot of things in the different states, and they're still allowing too many fish to be taken, and it shows. Mm-hmm. You know. I
got a text message from a friend in Newport who'd just been out fishing with a couple of his buddies, and he had a picture of the four of them all holding a fish, and I said, "Did you put them back?" And he said, "We sold them for $250 a piece."
Yeah, that bothers me, only because a lot of these people get a commercial license, but they're not commercial fishermen, and what they do is they go out on the weekend and they catch some fish, drink beer, and use the fish to pay, their gas or whatever, and really they're killing fish for profit. I have less of a problem with somebody who does it for a living. I mean, truly does it for a living. What they need to do is not allow commercial fish to be weighed in on the weekends, and that would stop a lot of this, I think.
What about the seals and the bluefish? Is that going to become a problem?
I haven't heard a lot yet this year, but there's tons of seals around, and from what I see, there's going to be a lot of great white sharks around to feed on them, so I think it's going to maybe bring things into balance a little bit. I watched Greg Scommel, who's the marine biologist for the state, last year, and he was talking about the fact it's kind of like if you put a McDonald's somewhere, that's where people are going to go eat, and if you put a bunch of seals in one place, you're going to find the great whites.
How many? Do you have any idea how many seals a great white shark eats in a day?
I doubt they eat
one a week.
Maybe one every now and then. The metabolism is not. I won't say it's slow, but they don't have to eat immense. But they don't have to eat immense amounts every day. But I think if you kill a 300-pound seal, and most of them are anywhere from 200 to 400 or 500 pounds, I guess that's going to last you for a little bit.
To change the subject, we had somebody on a couple of weeks ago who was concerned about the proposed, if you will, development, in quotes, on North Liberty Street, in the area that's known as Little Egypt. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, we have sort of another great white shark in the neighborhood. The developer who's doing this, obviously doesn't care about the island or what it looks like. Unfortunately, it's all about money these days. I mean, it's always been about money with a lot of these real estate people, and I think it's terrible. And I think what he's planning to do is the worst thing is he's going to take these old historic houses. Now, one of them is not that old and historic, but two of them are, and he's going to move them supposedly. Well, if they're going to move them, it's going to be one of those deals where there's nothing left probably but the corner boards on the thing, and our posts, and it'll all be redone, and it won't look anything like what it originally did.
But isn't the issue more what it does to the neighborhood than what it does to the building itself? I mean, if the building were to stay there, clearly that would be part of the streetscape and what the HDC is passing on.
Well, he's going to put them right up against the street, and I think that's going to be just horrible. And it's and I think the HDC, has to look at it from that point of view, not just what the house is going to look like, but the fact that they're probably going to destroy a lot of architectural details, both definitely inside and some outside, I'm going to guess. And then also what the neighborhood will look like, and it doesn't look like what is coming up. They're going to put these blockbusters up there in the middle of you're right on the road. It bothers me enough when I see these things out of town, up on a hill or whatever. But this is really egregious.
Is this it was claimed to us that this was the first time something like this had happened in the old historic district. Are you aware of whether that's the case or not?
Well, if you're talking about moving the house,
and essentially changing the streetscape.
well, I look at what George Allen's place used to be over on York Street, and that was definitely one of those things. It was a little less intrusive.
And it was just one lot that was involved there, right?
Yeah.
And this involves several.
Yeah.
This is really a development.
Yeah, this is not just one thing. And I just, I just think it's really sad that what bothers me the most is I know the owner of the houses, and I wish he had maybe come forth and found somebody else to buy them who treasured them as an antique instead of.
Haven't they been on the market for a while?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they have.
But still.
Anyway, yes, and pricing is always a part of it too.
Plus, he sells. I mean, what he does for a living is he makes, or
trades in.
Well, he makes the things that look like antique lamps and such. You'd think he'd have some appreciation for the rest of what goes with that. It's really sad. I just think that there had to be a better way. I think if people knew that he was possibly going to sell them to a developer.
He doesn't own both of them, though, does he?
He owns, yeah.
Michael Maytown. I thought he owned one in the garage, and somebody else owned the other.
I thought he owned both, but they were given to him by his father, and so it's basically all profit, I would assume, for him,
right.
if you know what I'm saying. So I think if people had known that he was going to do this, it was going to, I don't know if he has the wherewithal right now to say, okay, I'm backing out, And I assume that the sale is predicated on whether they can get the HCC approval and the wetlands approval and all that. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if it falls through.
What about this summer coming up? It's already busy. What do you see as some of the areas worthy of comment?
Don't go near Lower Orange Street is one thing I'll say. It's just the traffic around Marine Lumber in that area is terrible. Actually, all the Mid-Island stuff is terrible. And it's...
What do you think of the proposal for the bike path? And and the idea that in that very congested area of Orange Street, that people will essentially be dumped out in the street.
Well, that's one part of it, but the other thing is they want to go through a wetland,
right.
Which I have a problem with. You can't build something through a wetland without destroying some of it. I mean, a lot of the plants in a saltwater marsh, if you even just run a tire over them, they don't come back, or they don't come back for 10 years or 7 years or whatever. It depends on what it is. So I think it's going to do it. And somebody said, well, it's going to be above the swamp itself, and no big deal. But the fact is, we've seen it everywhere on this island. People throw trash, and there will be trash thrown off bikes or
pedestrians
falling off, or I mean, people on a bike, they're riding along, their towel falls off, or or they throw a beer can or a soda or whatever it is. We do need something, but I don't know how to. I don't think this is the way to do it, and I can't sit here and tell you how to do it. The problem is everything on the island was pretty much laid out so long ago. It wasn't laid out for the modern traffic we have. The best example I always think of is I used to go to Mexico in the winter sometimes, and Merida in the Yucatan is a town that was, or a city that was built in the 16th century, and at rush hour, nothing moves for an hour. I mean, literally the streets are just blocked up. I mean, it's even worse than what we're dealing with here. So I just think that it's a problem, and it's a hard. I don't think you can solve it easily. I wish that they could do something about the fact that some of these people have 3 or 4 cars here on the island for the summer.
But there are a lot of islanders who have a bunch of cars too.
You're right.
And they contribute to it as well.
Oh, no question about it. But I just think that I don't see a lot of islanders with 4 cars, and the kids each have I mean, there are some, I'm sure, but I don't think there's as many they don't have the bucks that these people have. So, you know, I see all these kids driving around in BMWs and stuff. I know they didn't buy that
Right.
while they're still in college. You know, mommy and daddy did.
But the other side of the coin is there is finite capacity to get cars over here.
Yeah.
And, you know, at peak times, it's very difficult to bring more over.
Yeah, but you know, I work for people that have cars that are registered in Massachusetts and sit in their garage
that's
all
true.
winter.
That's
you
true,
know,
but
they don't have to bring
I
all
do
of them
have a
over.
neighbor who has two who sit in his driveway all winter, but they don't bring any more here either.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's fine.
yeah.
That I don't have a problem with.
Right.
But I think, you know, some of the stuff is really out of hand. Like you said, it isn't just the people that come over here, but you know, most of the people that live here are working. They're not driving around to, you know, go shopping or whatever. I wish a lot of these people could be taking the NRTA buses, but they don't because it's beneath them, sort of. And I think that's unfortunate. You know.
Well, you know, but the other side, there is another side of that coin too. I remember, I think 2 years ago, there was a letter in the paper from a family of like two parents and four
Right.
kids. And they came without their car to try NERTA and so forth. But if they wanted to go to Surfside Beach from Sconset, you know, it was $12 for the first leg, $12 for the second leg, so it ended up being something like $50.
Yeah, but what's it cost to
beach.
bring the car over?
Well, that's true.
And then
I mean,
drive it and get.
yeah, but
you know.
if you bring your car for a week,
Yeah.
and you pay 50, you know, pretty soon
It's pretty much
the convenience of having the car,
Yeah.
you know.
But I'll put it this way: if I was living in Sconset, I'd go swimming in Sconset.
Well, that's
I mean, you know, that to me
your
is
point is
like,
well
kind of
taken.
like, why do you have to go to Surfside when there's water right near you? You know, or
Although
you know,
you can argue whether it's as nice, but that's subjective. What else? You had talked in one of your columns recently about bicyclists.
yeah, I just you know, I love bicycles and they're a great mode of transportation. But I worked in a bike shop here actually for 2 years when I first came here, 71 and 72, for Alan Reinhardt. He used to have Snow the Cycle Shop. And the thing I used to tell people was you have to obey all the traffic laws just like if you were a car. And half the time they'd all nod their head and they'd walk out the door and ride right down the sidewalk on their bike, you know, that I had just told them that. But the other thing that I see a lot of is that, you know, people come here, they haven't been on a bike for 30 or 40 years. They figure, well, you know, and you see them, they're wobbly, they're, you know, they're unsure of themselves, and those are the people that often get in trouble. You know, one thing, the other thing is the people come here and they go, well, I'm too old to ride a bike, so I'll get a moped, which is even worse, you know.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, you know, Tim Lepre told me, I've forgotten what year it was, but that this one year, and this is a long time ago, they had something like 9 skull fractures, but they don't report it in the paper, obviously, because it's sort of like the Jaws thing, you know. Hey, keep coming, everything's fine, you know, just bring money. And as I recall, one of the guys who was hurt was a very well-to-do gentleman, and he sued for a lot of money because he basically he was toast after that. He, you know.
So is there anything good going on? Anything you could rave about?
I love the film. I love the fact that we had a book festival. I got to meet an author I really wanted to meet who I loved his work. And then also we have the film festival coming up. I'm going to Donna Carey's reading of his new pilot on Thursday. Actually, I'm taking Gino with me. And so I think those are good things. They're great. I think that, you know, I think that the wine festival, I think those things are good for the island. I don't go to the wine festival because I don't drink anymore, but and it has gotten to the point where it's so unaffordable for most people. But you know what? I don't have a problem with people coming and dropping lots of money in the shops and things. That's, you know, I mean, that's what this island's about these days. You know, it's I always say this. It's like the sign that first appeared on 14th Street in New York. You know, it said, "Keep New York green, bring money," and you know, that's what it is about here a lot of the time.
David Goodman, thank you very much for your always wise and pithy comments about what's going on in
Okay, can I say one thing really quickly? Because I always sort of get something in about this, but there are probably 200 or 300 people that have hepatitis C on this island. and there is now a cure for it. It's pretty easy to do. Most insurance companies pay for it. It doesn't involve any injections, and it's only 3 or 4 months of taking pills, and it's a 94% cure rate. So for people that were worried about having to go through all this, or this is a way to stop the damage to your liver and your body cold and have a real life.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.